And we're gonna be recording. Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
This is the last.
This is over. Okay. And then. All right, and so just the last, we went over this, just that we're gonna be meeting, the second Monday, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, just meeting the second Monday. This body informs the implementation of the county's African American Wellness Hub and the implementation plan. And there's some specific, work that the board has asked for this, advisory board to do. We'll talk a little bit more about this, as well as supporting outreach and recruitment efforts. And, the goal is to kind of get things going so that as the 501c3 nonprofit comes on and the board of directors is erected and the community council is established, then this body would disassemble at that time. So actually I want to take a moment to greet our TCAB member who has come in since we did our introductions. And so if you want to say your name and just a few things about yourself. What can we say? Yeah, that would be it.
My name is Walter McMath. I am a California attorney and a Bay Area native. I live in Richmond. Interesting things about me. I am a dyed-in-the-wool musician. I pretty much always have an instrument on me. And I am beyond excited to be with you guys as a attorney here in California and a student of sociology. So just really glad to be here. Is that enough?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you so much.
But now we gotta know, what instrument do you have in your?
Oh, man, hey, listen, if you put in the quarter, then the tune will play. So always be aware. Today I've got two. I've got my little fife, which is just a little two-piece small flute. And then I'm also carrying this guy, which is kind of an electronic version of the same thing, but it plays 3 octaves, which this physically couldn't do because of physics.
You were not lying.
You better consult the bylaws.
Okay, so when we close out, we'll close out in song.
And we also have a community member on who was actually previously on the steering committee. So we do have some space for her to share a little bit later about the work of the previous body, the predecessor to this body. But in case you wanted to say hi now, Zalon, did you want to
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm Zalon Harrison. Good to be here with you all. Thank you guys for inviting me into your space. Thank you. Okay.
And Zalon, if you want to chime in on this next section, please do.
Okay, yeah, I will.
Well, we thought we would take some time to ground everyone in the implementation plan for the African American Wellness Hub. So we actually went to the Board of Supervisors on August 12th with this plan. They approved it, so we have the green light to move forward here. So we wanted to take some time to review it. Please pause us because, you know, we talk about this a lot. Sometimes you forget, you're like shortcutting. So please, just like you've been doing, ask questions if anything is not clear, but we're gonna just walk through it. And yeah, I see folks turning to it in their binder. You have a copy of it in your binder as well.
Yeah, you have the sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
You have the PowerPoint in your binder, but you also have like the full report.
So for RESJ, we have the privilege of starting this process under the leadership of Supervisor Federal Glover. He was a champion, not just for our office, but for the African American Wellness Hub. And so we do this in his honor. We also are going to ask you all probably at the next meeting to support us in selecting a name. The board did agree that this hub should be named after him. So either Federal Glover Wellness Hub or Wellness Network, or we'll ask for you all to join us in the creativity of naming it, bringing a recommendation forward for the name. But we appreciate his service and just, we have to begin with acknowledging him. So we're just going to, this is what is included in this presentation today. Just a word acknowledging the role of community in this process. We'll share with you, just starting in April, what some of the actions were that the board took and that the equity committee took to get us to this place. We'll go into background and context, and then the full implementation plan. Got along. We'll again ask lots of questions on the way, and then the budget.
Something that we wanted to make sure we emphasize is that this implementation plan really is a product of community voices, community input, community advocacy, and community vision. Ultimately, what informed this was years of advocacy, and over 4,000 voices contributed to a community survey, a number of listening sessions, town halls. So really, this is a product of that shared input and feedback and expertise. Through all that information collection, we heard things that may not be necessarily new information, but it was sobering to hear still that in almost every category of premature death, we know that in Contra, Costa County, our Black communities often face the highest number of disparities, racial disparities in 9 out of 10 of the highest of those categories. Examples, just to kind of share, so we all understand the kind of the need and the urgency of what we're trying to do here in creating this hub or this network of services. We know that in Contra Costa County, the average life expectancy is almost 7 years shorter for Black residents than their other county residents. In 2023, Black students represented over 12% of all students suspended from schools in our county, yet they only make up 8% of our student population. In 2023, Black residents made up over 43% of all stops by our sheriff's department, compared to just 24% of white residents. We also know Black folks were arrested at higher rates, and throughout California, Black folks experienced police violence much more frequently than other groups. And then again, also in 2023, while 26% of all Contra Costa residents live below the poverty line, 45% of our Black residents live below that line. So we just continue to see poverty and hunger and homelessness show up disproportionately in our Black communities, which just speaks to the urgent need for this project and why our Board of Supervisors in 2020 declared racism as a public health crisis, and then followed suit with approving this hub to answer that need. Okay. And lastly, we just really also want to emphasize with all that data collection, we know that our Black communities are not a monolith, that they are incredibly diverse. And so the level of needs it vary from within our communities, across the geography of our counties. So which is why I think, to your point, Willie, we have this expertise that you all represent that kind of really speak to different realms of service, of fields of expertise, and even places where you all live. You represent different communities as well, to help try to represent some of that diversity.
Can I ask a quick question? What year did you all come on for the equity?
Our office launched in October 2023.
Okay,
The steering committee, including Zalan, was already formed and sort of waiting for our office to launch. And so the first meeting of the steering committee was December 2023.
was it when your position, I remember when I first met the both of you, you were telling me about that, and Supervisor Glover appointing you. Was the intention to create the hub when your roles were created?
Actually, so our office holds many initiatives so one is the African American Wellness Hub. Another initiative that was waiting. So 2021, the county did a language justice survey and community needs assessment. And they said, okay, when ORESJ is formed, they can support a countywide language equity action plan. Another one was the Racial Justice Oversight Body, so looking at racial disparities in the criminal legal system. So there were several county initiatives that were waiting for our office. But even predating that, in 2020, there was a community group that came together in the wake of George Floyd and the racial reckoning that was happening. They said, this county needs to do something too. This county has got to respond to the fact that there's racism, injustices happening throughout the county. And so the community group actually came together. I'm gonna call them the core committee. Willie, I'm sorry, I'm speaking, Willie, you're here, right here, but this community group came together. Mr. Robinson, you can share. Let me try and then you jump in if you want to add anything. Is that okay? Or do you want to? Is that okay? Okay.
I'm gonna finish it. I'll.
Okay. But a community group came together, and said, we're gonna go and do a community needs assessment and figure out what, an office like ours should look like. And so they went out and surveyed across the county. There were about more than 2,000 people across the county who responded to the survey and explained the ways that they had experienced racism in multiple systems, education, health, policing, so all the systems. So we have this data that informed our office. They also took time to do town halls, listening sessions across the county to again, just ask folks, so if an office like this existed, what would you want it to do? What would it, what would the structure look like and that sort of thing? And so this community, this core committee, came together and formed some recommendations for our office.
Well,
Yep.
may I just chime in?
Please.
It basically was a major community effort that came together addressing the needs, particularly those of the most harmed in the community. And that was a gathering that went on for about a year or better before the core committee evolved out of that. And evolving out of that core committee, we concluded with putting in place the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice. And that's when the hiring process went out, and Peter and Dr. Carr came on board, and as the core, the establishment of that office and the build out of that office came with some parameters, and they're still building that office out. This has now been added to, which I've been raising some concerns, added to the task, but the initial feeling was that services in the county was not necessarily, there were a lot of complaints as with the NACP. I hear how people go to offices in the county and service is not there. And so you have to kind of figure out, why is that service not there? So a part of this office and a part of the core directorship, one deals with the outside community organization, the other one deals with the internal departments of trying to facilitate better service to the people in the community in which tax dollars are paid for the service, and they're saying they're not getting. That's kind of been some of the background going into that, and now added to the role has been the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice, which basically is carrying on the broadness of that work in the county.
Thank you for asking. Yeah, so this initiative is, I think we feel very honored to be, especially as a resident of Antioch and my kids growing up here, I felt honored to be a part of this, but this is one of, of several sort of priorities, initiatives that are going on in our office.
Maybe one other bit of context to add is, again, because our office was named in that 2020 resolution when the Board of Supervisors declared racism as a public health crisis. That was 2020. It was then, you fast forward to 2022, when we had the tech scandal in Antioch with the police department and all that horrendous violence that was emerging through the text messages on communities of color, particularly our Black communities. So then community members came out again, really advocating loudly that as a county, how are we going to address the trauma that our Black communities are experiencing? What can we do as a county to help nurture some of the healing that needs to happen from all of that pain and trauma that's happening? And then out of that advocacy came the decision from the Board of Supervisors was, okay, we're gonna go ahead and establish an African American Holistic Wellness Resource Hub. And that happened about 2023 when that was approved. So because our office hadn't yet been formed, but they knew we were around the corner, the Board of Supervisors was thinking, oh yeah, when they come, we'll go ahead and just put this on our plate. Which was, again, an amazing honor, and we're here for it. But it wasn't in the original plan of our office because the advocacy hadn't happened yet.
And might I also add that while the situation in Antioch was before the present time, that does not mean that areas like Richmond, North Richmond, Pittsburgh have not always had these kinds of situations going. And you know anything about the demographic shift in the county, many people left Richmond going to those areas for other reasons, and had these situations developing out in that area, and they were certainly more vocal and more in the advocacy role for doing something, but the need has always been here, and some of us have been watching those needs and how things have been changing, and want to make sure that the county addresses it from a holistic standpoint, specifically those who are the most harmed.
So just again, we just kind of walked this history, or we walked through some history, but then once the board decided, yes, we want to support by investing in an African American holistic wellness hub. One of the things was, but first, let's go ahead and conduct a feasibility study. So they hired a contractor through a competitive process called Series Policy Research.
Yeah.
The same research company that also did the research for our office as well. So a lot of similar approaches in terms of listening sessions, town halls, community-wide surveys. But they went ahead and approved a feasibility study that they presented, which really talked about many things. One is community health needs assessment. It also looked at what different county services currently existed throughout our county. There are many that already serve multiple communities, including our Black communities. They looked at potential spaces and sites and how what the market value would be. And then of course they did the surveys and the listening sessions to hear directly from community members. And where they landed was they proposed and recommended a community-led, community accountable approach grounded in Black voice and Black experience. To expand and strengthen culturally responsive services that the Black community says that they need, that they define as what is necessary. That the plan prioritize communities and spaces that reflect the needs of the most vulnerable and marginalized of the Black community. And that coordination must happen between community-based organizations and the county, that this must be a joint approach between what exists and is delivered by the county, what exists is delivered by community, but it's going to take all of us to come together and do this in a coordinated way.
I wonder, Salon, if, because you were a part of the steering committee. So the steering committee met from December 2023 until April 2025. They oversaw that feasibility study process. And so I want to invite Zalon, if you're ready, would you like to share any key takeaways, reflections from your time on the steering committee, overseeing the feasibility study process? Anything you want to make sure that this TCAB holds on to from your time on the steering committee?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for giving me time to share. Thank you all for service. So your service and volunteering your time to this very important effort. And I apologize. I was trying to turn on my camera, but it's not working. I would love for y'all to see me, see who I am, but you guys will see me because I love this work also. But one thing that was, there is highlights and then there was areas we needed to work on. And so I hope that this group, takes the baton and keep it running, because I feel that this is kind of the passing of the baton to the next relay, that you guys have to, take on the work. And we have systemic issues in our community when we get to these parts, when we need to make decisions and critical, we have critical opportunities like we do right now. And then it's like we get to these, roadblocks and barriers where we're not working together. So a lot of this work that being on the committee that I've seen is that when we come to the barriers, just having those solutions to work through and being committed on working through it so that we can get to the end game, right? To the end games that we have resources in our community for our people. So I'm hoping that if you all hit barriers of differences, that you guys remember the end game, and that's to get the resources to the people and to ensure that these resources are not violated or infiltrated with others' stuff, that it stays organically and holistically, and we have sanctuary around these resources for people who identify as Black and African American. And yeah, that was, I kind of mixed it all together there, the bright spots and the ugly, but it's not to say that this work isn't hard, but it's definitely, well, you guys will, it's rewarding. It's very rewarding to do this work and to be a part of something so great that's, I think never's been done. So, I'm just gonna say this piece, I do have concern with us not putting more pressure on our supervisors to get more money to this cause, because them putting one hub in one area is not really meeting the whole need of the harm that's been caused of years and decades of neglect to our communities. So I feel that that needs to be a big part of the work, is ensuring that this is not a fad. This won't end when this committee ends or when somebody's not the supervisor anymore, it's gone. This needs to be an accountability, a line item for this county to take care of our people, and that we have resources to do so. So I'm complete. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, and again, just a little context, so when the Board of Supervisors, has to have a feasibility study conducted, they created a steering committee of 13 members, just like you all. It was also comprised of all African-American Contra Costa residents from throughout the county. That's like a year and a half, and it was every Monday, might have been the third Monday or the second.
monthly.
But it was monthly, sorry, once, not every Monday. They met like what, like 17 meetings? It was a lot. So they were like kind of the first iteration, very much what you all are doing, but they were just focused on the feasibility study, while you all are gonna be very focused on these solicitations that we're gonna release.
Yeah,
There's
thank
a question.
thank you.
So what she was speaking to is something that concern that I had initially. That the hub will be in one location and not two locations, not in East County and the West County, because the two sometimes don't match. So,
So we are hoping to, so hub is the name we were using, but we're starting to use the word network because we want locations across the county. But to the point that Salon's making, and also you're making the building that we are proposing, so the headquarters for the lead entity, the headquarters for the 501c3, it's in Antioch. But to your point,
will be throughout.
right. Satellite locations, yes.
We'll definitely, we're actually gonna be spending a lot more time in this following slides to add more nuance to that question.
Yeah.
I think there's some other things to consider, recognizing some other things that's happening relative to African American homeless too, so in East County. So at some point in time, that may be necessary, that this group will be addressing the name of the other work done under the umbrella of, I don't want to say private, but most certainly. And this be named the same thing. I don't want to get into that now, but that's something that has to come before addressing. We have to
Yeah,
address that.
I think, yeah, definitely. There's gonna be so much, because there's so much history and context. Some folks are coming in first day. You've been here from the beginning, so we're gonna catch up a little bit, but we'll definitely be addressing that in I think probably the very next meeting.
Go back to this and just say, so when we were bringing this recommendation to the board for the African American Wellness Hub and what it should look like and where it should be located in community or the county, we did some site visits. And so these are just 3 of the places that we visited. Later on the agenda, you're going to hear from some TCAB members who went and visited a site in Sacramento. And so we have these locations to pull from. So we visited Roots Community Health, that's in San Jose. It's a community and county run program. The Vietnamese American Services Center. It's all run by the county. It's $5 million annually, all run by the county, but there's a beautiful building, and community-based organizations and county agencies are housed there. And then there's the Reach Ashland Youth Center, which is in Alameda County. Again, it's a 5 million annual investment from the county. So we just bring these forward. We brought these to the Board of Supervisors to let them know that other jurisdictions do have annual line items. There are places where the county is investing funds in an ongoing manner. So these are just comparable places that we visited that sort of informed this plan.
And one site that's not on this list, but you'll hear more about later from some of your TCAB members, is another site, Sacramento area, that also kind of follows the line along these lines. Awesome. So in the implementation plan, so now we're gonna get into the meat, to kind of answer your question. That, one, there are some priority service categories that have been selected based on the need, based on the research, based on the data. So in the solicitations for the rapid response services, that'll make more sense once we get there. We're gonna be focusing on these areas: behavioral health, housing navigation services and supports, preventive health care, infant and maternal health care, reentry support and restorative alternatives for those for home from incarceration. And then there's also another priority service category for youth development. Then resource navigation should be undergraded for all of them.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, this implementation plan has 3 large phases. The largest one by far is phase 2, but phase 1 is what we're in right now currently. And the very first step in phase 1 was you all. How do we get our TCAB together so we can start moving forward on some decision making? You are going to be helping us issue an RFQ and an RFP. One will be a request for qualifications for lead or implementation lead entity. We're going to talk about what exactly that person will be contracted to do. The other one will be a request for proposals. That's going to be for rapid response services. So direct service providers will be responding to that solicitation according to those service categories we just talked about. Something that we're also going to be working on as an office or RESJ is we are already in communication with our county colleagues and other departments and trying to establish some MOUs so that we have firm commitments from them that they will be partners, they're contributing their services in culture responsive ways that align with this plan.
Question, what is the definition for rapid response in this space?
We're about to talk about that.
Okay.
So first, we're going to talk about the implementation lead. So once we release these solicitations that you all help us craft the contours of, we're hoping then we will get a lot of quality responses to meet these requirements. For the implementation lead agency, we're asking this organization to hire an executive director that will lead the creation of a 501c3 nonprofit. Brand new nonprofit organization that is specifically designed to lead this network of services. That 501c3 is going to require a board of directors. We're also proposing that it establish a community council, which in some ways will resemble kind of like what you all are bringing to the table in terms of real lived expertise, professional expertise, to help inform the board of directors and the executive director. There'll be some core staff that they'll have to hire to do the work. Part of what this implementation lead will do for the coordination of the services, those rapid response services and more, is develop training and capacity building opportunities. Oversee that coordination, develop referral pathways, right? Come up with standards of practice, shared goals, communication practices, so everyone's talking to each other, convening them every once in a while, maybe once a month. And then to also come up with a 10-year sustainability plan, because this is going to take a lot more funds than what we currently have. Now, the service provider network for these rapid response services. A couple of things to consider is one, the RFP that we release will be able to fund a cohort of service providers. But ultimately, the service provider network will have to include much more than just those funded by these dollars. Okay, so it's really trying to help establish a service provider network of existing organizations throughout the county, right? But also include these organizations that we fund through the RFP. So we're trying to strengthen and expand current service offerings. We want to grow both our CBOs and our county departments' capacity to serve in coordinated, aligned ways that are culturally responsive. So we're bringing the county and the CBOs in a partnership together as part of this network. EHSD, our Human Services Department, CCH, our Health Department, Probation Department, our libraries. These county services should also be a part of the network, working alongside in partnership with our community-based organizations that are also providing services within this network. It's through those CBO and county partnerships, through very strategic and intentional collaboration and coordination, that we're going to see a collective impact. And then over time, we'll even have sub-regional networks where folks, and I say our West County region, are also much more tied in and working much more coordination in East County. But we also know that we have, they may not be as large in number, but we have our Black communities in Central and what we call South County. Here in Central, or even in Martinez, there are folks that are doing the work. How do we bring them all together in a coordinated way, cross-county coordination? Okay. Next slide. Our role as ORESJ, we're going to be working with our county department to administer, our county department to administer and manage the county contracts with the implementation lead, as well as with those network service providers. We're going to help convene this group, this TCAB, staff TCAB, until the 501c3 is established. Once they have that 501c3 up and running, and they have that community council on board and the board of board of directors on board, and that really then relieves you all of your responsibility. However, we are hoping that you all continue to, we encourage you all to serve in some capacity, potentially as the that community council members. The board of directors and executive director, those are going to go through a competitive process that the 501c3 will have to lead. If I get a question on your mind.
So you.
No, you.
Okay. The expression on my face, I was wanting clarification here. The TCAB, as I understand it, was to come in place to kind of help to develop the framework and the platform for the permanent, quote unquote, permanent organization, hiring of the executive director and putting in place a permanent board. I thought I heard you say something to the effect of you would hope that the TCAB continue beyond that point. What was that?
No, so yeah, I apologize. No, once that 501c3 is set up, and then we have both the board of directors and a community council set up, you all would then sunset and be relieved of your responsibilities. I just don't want you to think that then you cannot participate. It does not preclude you from being able to participate further. You just have to then throw your name back in the hat if you want to apply for, say, the community council and say, well, I want to continue to be a part of it.
Sure.
Then you can throw your name in just like any other person.
But I believe there was some exceptions in terms of serving here and being a part of the permanent organization.
Yes.
Is that?
Well, because so much of your role is going to be helping us design the eligibility criteria, the ideal qualifications for that executive director position in particular. That would be a conflict of interest if you all were to help design the criteria and then later on you go and apply for that position.
Yes.
So you all cannot.
I was just wanting clarity there because that's the way I thought I understood it.
Yes.
And maybe
Yes.
what I'm hearing from you was changing that, and that's not changed basically, and I can understand that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
What are limitations as being part of the provider network?
Oh, yeah. So as a member of this TCAB body, you also cannot apply for those direct service dollars, those rapid response dollars in the first round of this funding, because you all will be helping design the eligibility criteria for that as well.
That for us, of course, that's for us as individuals, but what of the organizations that we work for?
Yeah, so that would also pose a conflict of interest. So yes, we try to be pretty explicit in the outreach and recruitment for this body that if you are part of an organization or representing an organization that you think will apply for funding in this first round, in this particular solicitation that we're designing together, that would be a conflict of interest, yes.
Also, I'm reading in that Form 700, that's a part of that conflict of interest that we have to sign on to. And that's, there's some discussion in another body about how far did that really extend, and gets into her question. If she's a part of the organization, but not the person themselves, I think that's kind of what I was picking up on, is that in that Form 700 you'll have to declare, and some determination will be made as to whether or not you have a conflict of interest. Am I following that correct?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't think the Form 700 is actually the conflict of interest. I did have some communication with the clerk of the board about this. Jill, do you know offhand, or I can pull up the email, but I think it's, there are various, like particulars for what is a conflict of interest. For this, in like very specifically, we did want folks to recuse themselves of the opportunity to be on the board if they felt that the organization that they represent or that they're a part of will apply. And that might even go beyond your direct organization. If someone's like an executive member of another organization or something like that, that could include those things. Include that.
From where I said that some of the discussion I'm a part of, it needs to be clear. So if a person is serving here and want to be a part of a service provider team, then they're not excluded due to that consideration of conflict of interest.
So the advisory body, the advisory body handbook really explains this well. There's a whole section on conflict of interest, and even perceived conflict of interest. It's recommended to not participate like in discussions and that sort of thing, just because from a transparency perspective. So a true conflict of interest is if you are working for an organization that is being funded for the services being provided, because then, you know, your paycheck is being coming through that contract. That's a true conflict of interest, as well as being party to a service that's being provided, that's being funded through that. So it's real clear, you know, and it's just the first round of funding. I mean, so, you know, ultimately there'll be other rounds. I think that they're just saying not the first round.
Yeah, and another way of just saying that is you all are gonna design the application. So you can't design the application and fill out the application, right? So, and again, like Jill said, just that first round, though, there are gonna be subsequent rounds of funding that'll happen after this group dissolves. And so of course, you know, please, we want you to be a part of the network. That will be the success of the network, that it builds, you know, and gains, you know, additional organizations. But in this first round of funding, you know, after you're hearing this, if there's any conversations you want to have with us, please, let's just have that conversation, because there are ways you can recruit yourself now, and, you know, so that'll be something for y'all to to think about. Thank you for asking. Yeah, LaShawn.
Yeah, I just want to ask two clarifying questions. The round of funding, is that in phase 1 or is that in phase 2?
So we'll release the solicitations during phase 1, and it says December, but right now, as the time looks like, we're looking to have a release date of solicitations probably like in January. So it's been pushed back a little bit, but the release of the solicitations is technically phase 1, and then the award of those contracts and then the implementation, that's all phase 2.
And that's phase 2, which will be in 3.5 years.
Oh,
Right?
yes, so the contracts will be for, well, given now the timing, it may end up being 3 years, depending on, I mean, county processes. We've been absolutely trying to push these processes to move as fast as possible, but there are still some processes that we have to respect. So it might be 3 years ultimately by the time the dollars get out the door.
Right. And then the physical opening of the building.
Yeah, so in phase 3, this is where we are proposing that an actual physical location open its doors to serve as like the headquarters for that anchor, be like an anchor site for the implementation lead or the 501c3 that's created. And through the feasibility study, the consultant identified a county building in Antioch in a community that is distressed, but also has a lot of, community activity happening to help support it, on Cavallo Road. And this is a county building that is currently occupied by a county department. So it's not available yet. It's currently being used. But had already had plans to vacate that building in 2028. And they're gonna move, it's a call center right now, so it's just an office building, cubicle spaces. They were gonna move all of their staff to another new building that will be built and constructed in Brentwood. That would leave that building empty and the possibility for renovation to turn it into a community space that can serve as an anchor facility for this network of services. That's what we are proposing. There's some benefits to it because the county already owns the building. In a year or two, it will be owned outright, so there will be more flexibility in terms of how the county sets up a financing relationship around the use of that building, like the lease agreement. It is in Antioch, in a community that we have identified as a high need. And it's big, it's like 25,000 square feet. It's located right next to a charter school. But it would take a capital campaign to renovate it, even given the financial advantages of it. It would take a large capital campaign to really renovate it. If it wasn't this building, the feasibility study said market value right now says that if you were to purchase a brand new building outright, what is now $7.9 million allocated to this project, that probably wouldn't even cover the purchase of a building and the renovation of the building.
But services will start before, right?
Yes.
I just want to make sure that I'm hearing you
Yes.
clearly,
Absolutely.
that we weren't saying that services won't start for 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know why that was
No,
making
no.
my stomach turn.
No,
But
no,
I
no.
was like, just ask and be clear. So that's why the contracts and we're moving in phases. People will have access to services and resources, but we're working towards a physical hub.
Yes,
That's right.
okay. But, and even more clarity to that is to another question I think someone asked, is that as services ramp up immediately in 2026, that's the first thing out the door, services happen.
Okay.
We are gonna be then relying on people who come to the table and put in the application, that they have services that are located in the communities that we prioritize. We'll see that in a second. They have their centers or sites that they're able to deliver services out of. We're hoping that those sites can then co-locate other folks. Maybe you have office space that you can open up to another community provider, or we have county staff. Rather than asking our participants, our residents, to always go to a county building that may be inaccessible, what if we had a county community health nurse come 2 days a week out of that site and co-located there? What if we had somebody from our HSD as a benefits assistant, sign folks up for benefits, co-located? Vice versa. What spaces does the county already have? We have our community health clinics that our health department runs. EHSD has spaces. So we got a lot of different county spaces too that we can utilize, and they open up doors for CBO partners to co-locate 1, 2, 3 days a week and meet and greet and engage their clients inside county spaces. That's that partnership and coordination that we're trying to envision for this network. Therefore, throughout the county, we'll have anchor our satellite sites throughout the different neighborhoods and communities. That's why the implementation lead has to have the type of infrastructure to carry out this work out the gate, 2026, and therefore, and then be able to sustain it until the site, the headquarters is open in 2029. That's a lot, I'm sorry.
Leslie, and then,
Who's first?
Leslie, and then we'll come to you.
I just wanted to know, are those CBOs, are you all exploring telehealth opportunities with those CBOs, or do they always all have to have as an option for people not having a physical place to go, but are they gonna explore telehealth type of opportunities to meet people if they can connect electronically?
I think you all as TCAB will help us decide what you want us to say in this RFP. Do you want telehealth to be something that you encourage applicants to be able to offer or not? That's kind of the role of this TCAB, to decide those type of nuances.
All right, Ms. Robinson, yeah.
I just want to be clear, while there's been a site located for the hub to operate out, that's been proposed. There can be other consideration as this process move forward. Not that it shouldn't be, but I'm just saying, it's not a foregone conclusion that that's going to be decided. It's just being proposed at the time based on some early data that came in as part of the feasibility study.
Absolutely. If you're able to bring in a generous benefactor to give us $20 million,
I just
forget
don't want
that,
us-
forget Kabbalah, we're gonna go someplace else.
I just don't want us to conclude that that is the spike, because that's part of our discussion.
That's what hasn't even been formally approved by our board yet. This is what we proposed. They know that's there. We've been in communication with EHSD, Public Works. There's a lot of energy there and possibility, but it hasn't even been formally approved.
So Peter just went over this timeline. For the sake of time, I'm gonna, it's almost 7, okay, it's a lot of information, sorry, and thank you. But we do want to share with you that, we did take time to locate Contra Costa's most vulnerable African-American communities. We identified 12 census tracts as led by our data analysts. We identified 12 census tracts in Contra Costa that have the highest concentrations of African-Americans that also fall under the 25th percentile of the Healthy Places Index, which means that they're just performing worse than the majority of census tracts across California. And so those census tracts are where these services, we're gonna prioritize services in these areas. So North Richmond and Richmond, those are the West County areas. And then Pittsburgh and Antioch. And actually the census tract that had the lowest social vulnerability index score is located in Antioch. This is just a quick map. It's interactive. We can send it to you electronically. These are the locations across the county where there are health centers and clinics and social services sites that are all county-based. Like you all know who you are. No, we'll come back to the role of the TCAB in a moment, but we'll come back to the role of the TCAB. Peter actually already went through this, so maybe we don't take the time to go through this. We know that the goal is going to be to establish a 501c3, to establish a board of directors with some institutional seats and some community seats, to establish a community council. And so this is where we are now. Now that we have formed the TCAB, you all will oversee, if you will, the lead entity, the executive director, and the staff. And that is until the full board of directors is established and the community council is established. This is what that final sort of structure of the network of the hub will look like. And so the plan for sustainability, oh, that was you. So beginning in 29-30, we are asking our board of supervisors to invest $1.5 million annually. Just to let you know, that has to come later. During a budget cycle, you all know we're in critical, strange budget times right now. They could not commit that $1.5 million annually. So we will be going back to ask, because that will be critical, because we have an initial seed funding of 7.9 million. Peter's gonna go over that, how that's allocated in just a moment. But we want we want relationships with cities and the state and national funding sources, philanthropy. This hub is gonna be successful if we diversify the income sources, if you will, and so that's the goal. Evaluation is also a big part of this. We're currently applying for funding. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation invited us to submit a proposal up to $500,000. So evaluation is a piece where we are going to continue to fundraise and look for philanthropy sources. And this evaluation is going to be community-led. We want community to be able to define the metrics for success for the hub, not some, outside boardroom agencies making that decision. And so this evaluation, the reason we're applying for this funding is so it can be community-led evaluation. And we'll be talking more about that at our next meeting.
So, the Board of Supervisors has approved $7.9 million. It's a great investment, but, when we look about the scope, it's definitely not enough. The $7.9 million that this plan is proposed to spend over 3.5 years. $3.75 million of it, the largest allocation would go towards the rapid response services. That it means about 1.25 million will go out a year to fund those organizations. 2.15 million will go to the lead agency over the 3 years or 3.5 years to do what they were tasked to do. Then we also propose 2 million be put aside to go towards the planning, design, and any initial construction costs for that anchor facility. But just to be clear, we will need to raise more funds for a complete renovation. 2 million is not enough, but it can seed some of the work. And as Kendra mentioned, we will be continuing to go to the Board of Supervisors, asking for an allocation of $1.5 million annually, beginning in 29-30, once these dollars have been spent down, to at least continue to sustain the core operations of the 501c3 that's created, so it doesn't just go away. The next slide just kind of breaks down how we propose those dollars can go out over the 3.5 years. You'll see that the service contracts with CBOs, 1.25 million a year for 3 years. That's actually not a lot of money at all, especially given that we're looking at the entire county. So it'll be a small cohort of grantees, depending on how large, and this is part of the conversation that this TCAB will be having. Do we want to give out many small grants to more folks? Do we want to give out a little bit larger grants to fewer folks? Those are some of the questions we're going to be wrestling with here. The lead agency, however, you'll see a graduated allocation. We imagine in that first year is going to be hiring an executive director, 1 or 2 staff to help kind of be the core team. And then each year you add another staff or 2. And then, of course, there's the 2 million for the site renovation. That's 7.9 million.
And so we do want to let you know that now, there was an initial $1 million investment that the board made in 2023. So these are the 13 agencies that are funded right now. The work is happening right now. The cycle is May. They started services in May of this year and they'll conclude in April of 2026. Good work that's happening in a lot of different areas: Black infant and maternal health, community healing, food and housing insecurity, youth empowerment, and one more, and behavioral health. And so these 13 organizations receive grants all the way from 50,000 to 100,000. So
Is there a schedule that's available public-wise in terms of the awarding of these grants and how many
yes,
individuals awarded?
that's right.
That would be
Yeah.
interesting.
Yes. And so we did want you to know that these organizations are the initial cohort, the initial network, if you will. They're out doing good work. And so I do think, is that it? Oh, yeah, no, you don't have to. This is what we asked the board to do. And they did it, yay. Okay, so it was approved. But that was, again, that was a lot of information. Thank you so much for the good questions that were coming along the way. Any questions at this point? For clarification.
I have a quick question. So how do you know that these numbers are enough?
Funding, is that what you mean?
As far as the funding, you guys, is that based on past? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out. So how did you decide that it was 500,000? Just trying to figure out
Yeah.
how we came to these.
Yeah. I mean, so the dollars were thin, and so we were just trying to come up with some amounts that would cover what we estimated would be the cost of, say, an executive director and competitive salary. We do have a sense of like that slide again, what potential staff can be. Oh, we had another slide. And how much that might cost. We also added a little bit of budget for like a possible training capacity dollars that they can offer to the network and some overhead costs. And as for the service contracts, it's 121.25 million. That's just about $250,000 per category if you just want to do it evenly, because there's 5 categories, service categories.
Yeah, and I want to just add a little bit, and we have to take this, the board asked us to come back with the plan, with 7.9 million. And so what we said was, what could an organization do with 500,000 in 1 year? Like, what would that staffing plan look like? What could they do with 750 in the next year? So we had to work backwards, if you will.
Right.
The other thing we were thinking that, is that an organization hopefully applies that has some capacity already, so they're able to draw on some existing infrastructure. Maybe they have data staff already in place, maybe they have, so we didn't necessarily imagine that someone would just walk in and say, hey, I could do it, a one-person shop, although anybody can apply, anybody can apply. And so we are hoping, that's why we're trying to build relationships with as many folks as possible who are doing good work, and encourage them to apply, so.
I think the other thing is, some people have asked, well, why the implementation lead at all? And, while, again, the majority of the funding or the largest allocation is for the rapid response services, the county already funds services, and our department will never be a large funding organization. That's where we have our health department for, that's where we have EHSD for, that's where we have probation for. And they fund CBOs to provide services. What this county, through the research said is, community said, we need that glue, that backbone organization to bring us together. Folks are out here working in silos on their own, and we're not able to communicate because they're too busy just trying to do our day-to-day work. But we need some kind of infrastructure, some kind of coordination capacity to bring us together, to provide us with some training, to give us all that kind of that glue to bring us together as a countywide network. So that's why there is considerable emphasis on this implementation lead organization.
The end of the day, where I would come from, how is the person in need being impacted? And having been in this county and dealing with some of these processes, the whole reason for this program is because services are not being equitably distributed in the first place. So I'm here to say that most certainly capacity building is important. The organizations who are out there providing the service right now, there has to be some measurement of effectiveness that is built in without discriminating against them, but most certainly making sure that their delivery mechanism is doing it. I served on that innovation fund, and that was a grueling process. And sometimes you get languages that exclude persons without taking under consideration the need for capacity building to get to the service, because there are persons who are saying services to this specific community need to come as much as practical from persons who are already doing the work. So I'm just putting that on the table in terms of consideration.
Thank you. And we'll talk, we've talked a little bit about what the role of the TCAB is, so we're gonna keep moving at this moment, because we're gonna dig into that work together next time. Go to the next slide. We'll shift back to what I stated in the beginning, which is essentially that I wanted to make space for folks here to share what they think some community agreements can have. We might get into like a heated debate, and I'm not on the TCAB, but if I was, maybe I'd say, I really think we need a site for like a UFO landing. And maybe I put that into the RFQ, and maybe folks are like, hey, what's the most respectful way to tell Jessica that's not part of our purview, or that might not be relevant, right? Still honoring my experience as a sci-fi nerd, right? Because that's not what we're here for. That's not the sci-fi cab. Just giving a silly example, but we do know that like these kinds of things, how many is going out, where it's going to, what's the biggest need, these can be seriously controversial conversations in our community. And so definitely just want to make space that like to create a safe container so that we all feel like, yeah, respected and comfortable. If there are other agreements that we want to put forth, we can do that now. We can continue to do it as like an evolving thing, but I just want to definitely like just create from the beginning just an agreement that we're going to treat each other respectfully in this process. So one thing that I didn't say on the first, and I'll say it now because I'm thinking about just like my need in the moment is to take care of yourself. So I know it's like a long meeting. So I was thinking like, oh, I didn't stop for like a bio break. I hope if folks need one, that they would take one for themselves. So like, I think that's always a really good agreement in community meetings. We're gonna be doing working meetings, but by all means, we're humans, you know, and this is about wellness after all. You need to take a moment to put your head down or walk into the bathroom, or you need to, you know, talk to your babysitter or whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. We want to make that available. And again, as I mentioned, as a staff, like if folks need to talk to me confidentially about other things that I can do to create more accessibility, I'm committed to that. And so I'll add that to our agreements, but I'm wondering if folks have anything else. And again, we can continue to, you know, if we're feeling kind of burnout toward this end of this meeting, we can continue to make space for this moving forward as well.
How do you keep someone like myself from being always saying something?
Yeah, so sometimes
I
we
do have
have.
a lot of things in my mind, so I'm gonna yield to everyone else now and take that bio break.
Okay, great. Yes, so I'll write that. Sometimes folks write that as, some people will say like step up, step back. So if you feel like you're being really quiet and you actually have a lot of experience and you maybe even a different perspective, go ahead and, you know, kind of bring yourself forward. Oh, thank you so much, Peter. Bring your voice forward. And if you feel like you have a lot to share, but you're recognizing that maybe folks aren't feeling as comfortable sharing, not to silence, you know, because we all have a lot to do, but definitely, you know, take a step back and take a break, and see if we can make space for other folks. So you could do that step up, step back, or if there's another way to say that folks feel comfortable with, open to that also.
Is that what you were gonna say?
Yeah.
That's literally what, in one of my community agreements.
Oh.
Yeah, or take space, make space.
Yeah.
I'm different.
Just, you guys just shout them out, and I'll write them down.
Other thoughts? Even if it's like overly obvious.
Well, I'll be the person to go ahead and step up and say that, hey, we need to show each other respect. We require respect if we choose to share, and if others choose to share, then we want to make sure that we show them respect. We want that for ourselves. We also want to set that example.
Thank you.
Step up, step back, take space, make space.
So I was just thinking, maybe before we move into a different agenda, if we can ask if everybody's okay with questions, can we move on? So that gives people, you know, space. Like, I don't like to interrupt people, and if you quickly move into the next agenda, I'm not gonna draw you back, but, you know, just in case we have things to say, making sure everybody's in agreement before we move to the next agenda.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna write them how I think I hear them, but then I'm gonna just go to some of the wordsmith later if this isn't quite the right language. But check or confirm understanding before moving on to the next.
Thank you. Zolan?
Can I speak?
Yes, please.
Okay, I just wanted to share maybe this one. Assume that everybody has good intentions, like assume that people are coming from a good space. Like that is not like, and seek to understand before you assume, like feel that they're coming from harm. Because sometimes, you know, we all need to just assume people are coming from good spaces. I don't know how to word that, so you guys can probably, you know, I probably butchered it, but I was hoping you guys get the point.
Thank you, Salon.
I would just add to that, in the spirit of active listening, listen to understand and not necessarily to always respond. Sometimes, and I'm an analytical type person, so I have to hear it and think it through and not just be quick to say, oh, that doesn't make sense, or But you can ask curious questions, obviously, as well. So, for understanding and not just responding.
And we're obviously gonna include the ones that are already here, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, and I just wanted to say, like, so to the be prepared one, the only, I say that just in that, I think sometimes folks, you know, because of the way an advisory board works, like, you know, it's kind of like a working board where like the work is being moved by community members. And so if you have an opinion or a problem, you know, the solution is gonna be met here for the most part, like, given the work. And so, like, even if there's contention or, you know, wanting to work things out a different way, like, be prepared to take that together, yeah. But I think these are good, and I'll put them together in a working document we can continue, but I see that Mr. Robinson have.
Well, I was wondering about honoring time commitment, has that been brought to the?
No.
If you're volunteering for these meetings and if you set the time for 2 hours, that's a long time. So how do you get business done within a reasonable amount of time without extending over 2 hours? That's just a thought, time consideration of those who are taking the time to volunteer after their full day to come to a meeting, and the meeting goes on unnecessarily longer than what it should be, so.
Yeah. And actually, at that point, since we have a pretty good list, I'm gonna close out this, unless folks have anything else they wanna add at this
I
moment,
do want to add something.
please.
I do want to ask if we could just take a moment to center. I think like if we could center at the beginning, especially since we're talking about mental health and wellness as well. And then if things are tense, I don't know, maybe we need to put out an instrument. Because we all know that research shows, right, like some type of movement or taking a break and can release the tension. So that we're able to collaborate in harmony as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, I love that. And I actually, I have a group that I convene with, and one of the things we ask for is the ability for anyone to ask for a collective pause or a collective breath. Which I think is really powerful. So I'll just kind of like dovetail that, because I agree that, you know, we should be able to. And apologizing, because I wanted to get so much into our orientation today that we didn't take that time for groundedness. Also, because we have about 13 minutes left. I think we'll close this for now, but we can keep this as a living commitment to one another, and I will get this and several other things back to you after this evening. We're gonna, I think we can close out on time, but we might need we're gonna do, we're gonna close out on time, so we're gonna just a quick look ahead. We're gonna have some of our TCAB members share about the Black Child Legacy Campaign site visit. And then we'll just shift to a little bit of what our priorities are over the coming months together. And then we'll kind of take the rest offline.
Can I propose, to the 4 members who came with Sacramento, can we forecast to the group just what the site was about? Then leave them kind of hanging and tease them so that we can continue the conversation in the next one? Because I don't want to shorten the conversation. You guys are gonna have a lot, I know you're gonna have a lot to say, but maybe we just kind of tease it a little bit and then we can get to the other final logistics and then, okay.
My vote.
Would a member like to just kind of really quickly say where we went?
I'm looking at that end of the table down there.
I do.
Funny.
Well, I got a phone call from a friend asking me about, had I seen any examples of a system that was building trust with the community. And that was, this was the example that I shared with her, was that we saw what Peter was, or Kendra was talking about, co-located services that generally do not mesh with our community. But these folks were co-locating like probation, CPS, all the folks that you don't want to be dealing with. They co-located these folks in their building. And one of the beautiful things about it is, as soon as you get to this place, there is no doubt about who this place is serving. Because the entire place looks like that. On the inside, there's just pictures of beautiful African-American art. But I want to get back to that trust piece, because I think that was the thing that struck me the most was how the county was intentional about finding folks from the community who were working in those agencies and who had the right mindset. So they weren't there to close cases, they were there to divert folks out of those services. And to hear the folks, like this young lady who worked in probation talking about she felt like she was identified to go and work in this location specifically because of her mindset, and she was there as a public servant trying to divert folks away from their services. And also how they used the word hand-holding a couple of times there, and not in a derogatory way. It was like, that's their job, is to handhold our folks through these services so they can have the best outcome. And I'll yield so that some of the other folks that was there can share.
You did a great synopsis, so I don't have a lot to add, but this was a phenomenal experience. They definitely emphasized that it took them about, 10 years to get to this point of excellence. It was not an easy process. They emphasized, give yourselves grace. I remember the executive director said, lead with love, even for the people that are organizing this effort, and everyone should have that theme throughout the expansion and scalability processes, and really think about focusing and being prioritized. I know we have 6 different health priorities, which are very important, and there may be some that we haven't even listed, but you can't do everything at once. We want to, but it's not going to be impactful. So start from the end and go back and be very intentional about the outcomes and the measurements. Because while qualitative data is very important, we want to hear from people and their experiences, the county and other stakeholders are looking at the numbers. And those are things that we do not and cannot afford to massage and manipulate, because we're doing harm to our community that we're serving. So those are some of my biggest takeaways, but honestly, I could talk about this forever, because I've been telling everybody about this experience. It was phenomenal. So.
I'm good. I think you've already covered everything. I think it'll be interesting to be able to stand up that environment in Antioch initially, right? I think our goal is to do that, but it's about building that trust. It's all about building that trust from my perspective.
Dr. Nichols talked about the numbers, their numbers with 27% decrease in child mortality prior to COVID. And then COVID hit and things kind of went back. Now they're at 9% decrease. But their work is all centered on reducing child mortality for Black children in Sacramento County. And the model that we saw, I didn't have an idea what this thing could look like. I'm glad I went on that field trip, because that raised the level of vision for what we can do here significantly.
We're gonna leave it right there, so you all can be like, but I have unanswered questions. Yes, we're gonna talk about it at the next meeting. Because there's so much of this model does resonate with what we're trying to do here in ways that we didn't quite anticipate. So, yeah, definitely share more. Tony. I know.
Tony with an eye.
But
Tony with an eye.
Oh, and the line, oops, I'm way on the wrong.
I just wanted to ask, what city is that located in?
Sacramento.
Oh, Sacramento, okay. Do you know what part of Sacramento?
So they're in, the one we were in was Meadowwood, but they are in the 7 neighborhoods of Sacramento with the highest rates of Black child mortality.
Mortality, okay.
They chose the 7 neighborhoods very specifically because of the data in those neighborhoods. So we visited one of the 7 sites, and that was in Meadowwood,
And they're planning to expand.
Meadowview.
Expand.
I was like, where is Meadowwood? I'm Meadowview. Yeah, I lived in Sacramento for 10 years, so I would want to see if they have Del Paso Heights, the north area.
Oh, I think they did name that, I think, Zalon, but, you just gonna have to attend the next meeting so we can actually give you more detail.
Absolutely. You know I'm here for.
Awesome,
Thank you
and
all
we
for
will.
sharing.
Not to say that I'm hungry.
So yeah, I'll swiftly try to get through these last 5 minutes.
No, so is that an opportunity to kind of add to this environment, to keep us awake and excited? I'm just saying.
Yeah,
I didn't think that would be appropriate.
we're gonna be
for
working on
community.
we're gonna, can I think of things about that? One, we're gonna work on the food. We have to get approval from the board to use county money to buy food, yeah, okay? So we're working on that. It might not be in place for the next meeting, just know we're working on. But the other piece that I wanna say is we do have an opportunity to consider the timing of these meetings. I know we've been saying second Mondays, 5:30. We just didn't wanna confuse this meeting today and bring a whole bunch of information. One thing that we do want to start thinking about is, are there other times during your work week that you could commit? Are you available during the day, for example? You don't have to answer now. We chose this time based on the last steering committee. They needed to do it after hours because of work commitment, the kind of work setting they were in, but it's a new config, it's a new, a new body, so we can also explore the time. But Angela, we hear you say you're hungry. I mean, that's what I hear, me too. I know, sorry.
I'm just gonna say this out loud so we don't get in trouble. That food was generously donated by the meeting before.
Oh, yes,
We
sorry.
did not use county funds for the food that's on that document. In case the county council's listening.
Okay, so I'll try to shoot us joyfully through the next 4 minutes. We talked about the RFP, the RFQ, the site location and the hub naming being some of our lead charge for this advisory body. The next meeting, we'll be talking a bit about, as we mentioned, those 2 solicitations, priority service locations, what the review panel should look like for those solicitations, the naming of the hub, the Robert Wood Johnson grant that we discussed. We're also going to bring back the inspiration from the site visit. Yep.
We see your hand. Come on,
And
one
so-
moment.
We will also, I'll be sending out some more information about the conflict of interest. There's a couple different resolutions and like some different codes, so folks need to like sit with that more to make sure they feel that they understand that. I'll also be sending out some dates, but as Kendra just noted, we might be shifting that. I mentioned, or I shared with folks that there are 3 trainings that are required for all advisory body members to take within 90 days. So I've sent the links to that. I'll be continuing to follow up with folks and tracking the completion of those as we move forward. And I will always have homework for you all prior to meetings, things that you can review and so that you can have a little bit more of a robust ability to respond while we're here together. So stay connected. I have several things to send folks that we've talked about here, including our community agreements, link to our website to find out more about our grantees, contact information for folks, conflict of interest, and so on. So, do we need, we're 1 minute to the end. And Zalan?
Oh, no, I don't have no questions. I'm sorry. That was from earlier. Apologize.
Worries. And so I apologize, we sped up there. I just wanted to make sure to honor folks' time. If there are things that folks want to still ask, I'm happy to answer, or if you want to, take some time to think about it and do so by email or. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you
for
so
staying
much.
on the TCAB. Appreciate you. See you in a couple weeks.
Good night.
7:29.
Good night, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
No. No, when you were pulling up the map, I know that my first came from. Area. So. I don't.
You're good. We're gonna leave more time for you next time.
There we go. Thank you so
Don't hold it against me.
No, you just, like, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, because you just look like.
I was also wearing the uniform.
Yeah.
The only
My
thing
name
I
is
asked.
Okay, all right. I was wondering what you had to say about the center. Among everything you go see it.
Get the right answer.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, let's think about that. I'm gonna write that right
Right now.
Yes, and it's very much was that was what they built there, and